Welcome everybody to the topic on an introduction to change management. This is actually one of my favourite topics and really is integral to the way you work as a Salesforce consultant and the way that you approach business analysis and agile project management. So I'm looking forward to taking you on a quick journey to explain the different principles of change management. So firstly, there are different areas to look at here. So the first is about what is change management. So understanding the organisation is about what is the business need, the culture, the readiness of that organisation and the history of the organisation. We're going to do a bit more of a deep dive on that, but it's about deciding what your strategies are going to be from a change management point of view will largely depend on the culture of the organisation and whether it is ready to go on this journey with you. The second is about understanding your stakeholder. So you've got different stakeholders with different personalities, learning styles, motivations. And so doing a stakeholder audit will be really important, but also creating a strategy that covers most of those learning styles and motivations will be important to make sure that you're engaging and enthusing people on this journey with you. And then next, you want to empower people to lead change. It is about equipping the executive leader to lead change and implement a short and long-term approach to this project. So you want to have a great team in place. You want to empower them. You want to educate them. You want to explain what they need to do if they're not clear. They might never have done this role before. So it's really about empowering people at all levels to come on this journey with you to go through this digital transformation journey. And then from a project comms point of view, it's about planning communications throughout the project. Why is it happening? What is it? When will it happen? And you want to communicate this in at least 3 different ways to engage the audience. I like talking about the 3 E's: enthuse, engage, and embed. The 3 E's is the thing to remember, but also you need to say these things in 3 different ways. If you think about sales methodologies, you always say that people need to see and hear things 3 times. I think it's actually more than that these days. I think somebody quoted 9. So in order to get everybody on board, get people aware that, we're having this new Salesforce system, the executive sponsor and the management team need to have a communication strategy that all echoes the same language, that is all saying we're doing this because this is when it's going to happen, this is how it's going to happen, and we need your buy-in because, and that's about having a really good communication strategy. Now, the problem is if you don't have a communication strategy or a change management strategy, is that the business case is not clear to everybody and it's not communicated. So that means that people don't get on board or don't know why they should get on board with it. If they don't know why, and it's not clear to them why it's important, then they will low and they won't spend the time and energy on this. People will not feel consulted and they can become frustrated and not engaged. So getting the right approach is really, really important in terms of communicating with people, inviting them to different workshops, different ways to engage with it is paramount. So you want a really good communication and change management strategy in place. If this happens, the outcome will be that the input into the design business analysis process will be low because they won't prioritize time for it, they won't be involved in it, and hence they might not give everything they need or invest the time and energy into that workshop. If you don't get the right information, it means that your technical solution won't be fit for purpose. It could mean that the project is delayed if they're not spending time prepping the information that you need. And ultimately, this will lead to low user adoption or no adoption at all. So it's quite often, change management is quite often a principle that is not talked about as much, but is incredibly important in terms of how you tackle projects. So I did a week-long change management course. It was fascinating. There was lots of theories, but it didn't give me a way of applying it in practice. And so I came away from that workshop and I put together an 8-step approach to change management. It was 4 key pillars, and I pulled all the methodologies out and packaged them into these methodologies because I wanted a way, an approach to go into a project and go, right, I need this methodology, I need that methodology, right, I've got everything at my fingertips, and to adapt and flow with. Now, on that course, everything was a bit everywhere and there was no sort of recipe, if you like. So I've put together a recipe. I teach this on my change management course as part of our consultancy skills and really go into the detail around it. But I'm just going to give you an introduction to what these things are and why they're important. So the first pillar is about analysing, and we're going to look at rationale and readiness and really understand what that means of the organisations. That would be your first step for change management. The second is about planning your approach to change management. What's the approach you're going to take and who is the team? The third is around strategy. Who is going to lead this change management and who's going to facilitate it and how to be facilitated. And then you've got the change management piece, which is about preparing for change and embedding the change. So within each of these pillars, we've got key tools and methodologies that you would apply and use on your project. So let's do a deep dive into pillar 1, which is around analyze and looking at this rationale and readiness. So a couple of exercises that I talk about here is the business case. So you want to have the business case there, but as part of the business case, you might undertake a SWOT analysis. And with SWOT, I talk about, it's a different approach to maybe what you've heard of before, but it might be about, creating empathy with the client. So you talk about what are the strengths of the current way of working without the new Salesforce project? What are the weaknesses of the current way of working with the current system? What are the opportunities for moving to a new system? And what are the threats of not moving to a new system? So it's a great exercise to really help get everybody's thoughts on a page to see who actually really likes their current way of working, who wants the new approach, but it helps everybody understand everybody's perspectives. You then also got a pest analysis you can do, and you can look at the KPIs. As I mentioned before, I typically have a suite of 15 KPIs that I teach, which you can take on board and present as part of a initial conversation to create that foundation. So you want a good business case, and you can use some of these methodologies. The second is a risk analysis. Now, I have a risk analysis framework. It has about 20 risks in it that you would talk through and discuss with a client. I teach as part of a business analysis change management approach. It kind of covers everything, to be honest. The risk management covers all of these disciplines. And within risk management and risk analysis, you want to look at the culture, the history, the politics, the authority, the process, the people, and the structure. And I've got 20 different areas that I would look at and assess with a client to really understand, well, where have risks been before? Where do we need to move forward? And how do we set ourselves up for success and mitigate risks? And in some cases, you might even decide now's not the right time to do the project, hence the rationale and readiness. The rationale means, is there a rational reason why we do this project? What's the business case? And readiness is about, is this organisation actually ready for this change? Is there a risk of doing it now because actually it might not happen? So they're the questions that you're asking yourself at this stage is, should we move forward with this change? The question will be yes or no. And if it's no, you step back. If it's yes, then you go for it. Now, if it's yes, this is where you move forward and you plan your approach and the team that's going to be involved. When you're planning your approach, you want a stakeholder engagement strategy. With this, we are doing a stakeholder audit. There's various tools and methods for doing a stakeholder audit, but you'd want to understand who your key influencers are, who the management team is, how bought in different stakeholders are. We talk about 4 different segments that they can sit in. And it's really understanding, well, actually, how do we tackle this? Because if you've got people that are really on board, brilliant. They might be potential champions for you, and you do want to look for champions. But equally, you might have people who we call blockers, and blockers might be the ones that might sabotage this project. So you really want to understand who's anti the system, anti this happening, and to work out a way of engaging them and hopefully converting them to the good side, the light. Or, how do we tackle it if they're not? And I have been on projects where people have been managed out equally because actually they're not on board with the project. And I was in a situation where somebody was really heckling in every workshop and just bringing it down. I mean, very negative. And subsequently, they didn't stay with the organisation because this organisation needed this system to meet compliance. It wasn't an option. But if people aren't on board with that, despite conversations and obviously working that through, you wouldn't just do that lightly, is you need a strategy for engaging and understanding where people are sat. So you might be sleepers, enthusiasts, for example. There's 4 different areas we talk about. So once you've done that, you would analyze that, work out your approach with them. You would then also want your implementation strategy, which is your change management team. You need to have the right people in the room to help with this change management approach. You want to make sure that they are all on board with it. and that they are communicating the right things to different people at the right times. And you want to create a great way of working as a team. So I also teach about effective team working strategies, how do you get operating well together and bringing them all on this journey with you. Because quite often this when they're working on a Salesforce project, it might not be their full-time job. They might have other things going on, other projects they're working on. And so you want to put in a place where they can work effectively with you. Pillar 3 is about the strategy for change management. It's about the leadership strategy and about the communication strategy. So leadership strategy is about having an executive sponsor who's really bought in, but equally they know what's expected of them. And so I teach about what is their role and responsibilities. And it's really important that you share that with them if they don't know, because their role is more than just giving budget and signing on the bottom line. Their role is about communication. It's about awareness. It's about generating buy-in with the rest of the senior management team. So you want to be talking that through with them to make sure that they are on board. They know what's expected of them. So equally, you might then have the management buy-in. You've got management buy-in on everything, because the managers need to be on board. The managers need to be on board with learning the system, owning the system, teaching their team about the system, and bringing everybody on this journey. So they're your two things you want to sense check and work on. Again, in situations where the managers were never trained on Salesforce, they never knew what it could do, and hence they weren't bought in. So you want to be in that position where actually you are getting them bought into it. They see the value for them and their teams, and that they are really, actively encouraging their teams to get on the process, and they're communicating the reason why. So this then leads nicely onto the communication strategy. You have to have this senior management team sponsor communicating in a way that's going to work for everybody. And I talked about having a comm strategy that people will see and hear things 3 times, but you also want to have a strategy that will accommodate different motivational styles. And in change management, we teach about 4 different motivational styles. Depending on the culture of the organization, you will adopt maybe 1 or more. We also need to be aware of different learning styles. There are 4 different learning styles, and you want to be delivering training and business analysis workshops in a way that they land well with people and cover all the different learning styles. Because if you only deliver training or communication in one way, it's only going to land with people that engage in that learning style. And then you've got 2-way communication channels. It's really important to have 2-way communication, that people feel brought into things, that there is this back and forth between people. So they would be the things that create a great outcome on change management. And there's lots of tools and methods that I teach that are not overwhelming. It's a simple like, okay, well, we can do X, Y, Z. Brilliant. This is what needs to happen on that level. And then finally, we go through to pillar 4, which is about change, preparing and embedding change. So what you want to have is a really good adoption strategy. You want to make sure that as an organization, you can demonstrate readiness and success for rolling out. You want to have a process for rolling out. You want to make sure that people are on board with rolling out, and you've got different stakeholders being involved in this process, particularly having Salesforce champions, having the managers on board, making sure that people have time to train up and adopt what they're doing. And you want to prepare for rollout. So you want to be thinking about all these things when you're launching about new technology project, having this adoption strategy laid out for them. Then you've got the implementation plan. So this is actually go live. This is about having all those pillars in place once you've gone live with the system. So you want to have a support team in place. If you get stuck or can't find something or need something new, who do they come to and how do they ask for support? You want to institutionalize change. So you want to make sure that this is the normal way of doing things. And that might be about creating business rules. It might be about changing contracts. It might be creating new policies, new training material. How do you make sure everybody's on the same page and are implementing it? You also want to establish a change culture. You want to make sure that people are aware that change is normal, that it's about improving things, and that's, bringing everybody on this journey is okay. So you want to establish change. You want to establish a change culture in the organization to say, we're not staying in the status quo, we're moving forward, we need to improve things, and this is why, and to get everybody on board. You need to think about quality control, making sure that actually people are using in the system in the way that you anticipated, that there's no problems with that data integrity is good, that user adoption is high, and you want to evaluate the overall success. So there's lots of different facets to this with change management. As I say, it's integral. All of these things feel integral to you delivering on a Salesforce project, which is why I always look at, they call them the hat trick skills of business analysis, agile management, and change management. You've got all those different disciplines. So it really does go hand in hand. Now, when we think about the consultant skills and toolbox around change management, you want to have presentation templates that you can use to facilitate workshops and document, again, the business case and the change management, the communication strategy, and all of those different things. You want to have appraisal tools and techniques. You want to know how to assess risk. You want to be able to analyze your stakeholders, appraise the organizational culture, and have, as I say, those risk mitigation frameworks and everything else in place. You want to have a comms strategy. So do you know how to deliver on a comms strategy? Are you working with somebody that can do that with you? How do you manage communications to different stakeholders, and how are you going to move that forward? And then finally, systems and tools. Do you have the systems and tools available to facilitate change? How is that going to happen? This might not all be dependent on you, but it's a conversation that you might need to have with the team to make sure that we have got this stuff in place. And, again, to educate them as much as maybe you take responsibility for it. As a Salesforce consultant, you want to make sure that you're ticking all the I's, or is it crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's to make sure that you're mitigating risk wherever possible. And you've got a team on board who can do all these different things, and that you're aware of all these different things that need to happen. So let's visit the quiz and the scoring. So again, as I've mentioned before, purple is no confidence and green is very confident. There are a few questions around this. Again, you can revisit the module on the quiz. So how confident do you feel adjusting your style of delivery for different personalities, organizational culture, and different learning styles to make the project run smoothly? Quite often the challenge of projects is managing people, not the technology. So purple in no confidence would be, I run projects in a standard way, but I don't always get clients aligning, which has led to complaints and I don't know how to solve it. To green, being very confident is I take time to get to know my audience, their personalities and learning styles, and adopt my approach accordingly. So that would be where you want to get to with your confidence. Next question is, how confident do you feel managing and communicating with clients throughout a project to keep them enthused, excited, and engaged throughout a project to establish buy-in and user adoption? So purple, no confidence would be, I do not have a set approach to working with clients, and I do not feel I have good working relationships with clients for the same reason. I feel challenged by the situation and really want to find a better approach as feedback is not being great. So obviously that's, you don't want to be in that situation. But where you could be, would want to be is green, which is I normally feel comfortable that I can establish rapport and accountability with clients throughout the project lifecycle. I have a set approach to project management and change management and training that seems to work well with good client feedback. So that's optimum where you'd want to be. And obviously you could be somewhere in between, and you can gauge yourself from where you are right now. So thank you for listening to the session today. I hope that's given you a good introduction and insight into what change management is, and has encouraged you to learn and want to know more if you feel like it's an area you want to focus in on. So thank you for listening. I will see you in the next module.